Just before we begin, I think it's probably best if we let you describe who you are. So, in your own words, who is the enigma of Jim Goad?
Well, Enigma, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm misunderstood. I'm a writer, a skeptic, epileptic, father, dog owner, expatriate Philadelphian. Yeah, I think mostly skeptic, though. Somebody's trying to call me. My puppy's barking. But, yeah, skeptic. I don't affiliate, I don't identify with any kind of ideologies or movements. And, can you hear him? Is he really loud?
It's just, it doesn't bother me. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. And I'd like to follow the rules of journalism as they were taught to me. Just discussing anything, try to report facts and figure out what's going on. Don't start with an agenda, which is what people across the board seem to do these days.
Yeah, and as far as your previous publications, you've done Answer Me, the Redneck Manifesto, probably best known for your work at Taki's magazine. What else have you done?
I did a comic book called Trucker Fags in Denial about 10 years ago. Did a CD of trucker songs about, God, now 19 years ago, and went on tour with Hank Williams III singing songs from that in 2007. I've done 4 books, 2 of them are anthologies and 2 ebooks, and done push-ups. Let's see, survivor of both prison and brain surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, ongoing public crucifixions.
It is to be expected.
Huh?
It is to be expected.
Yeah, I never expected people to get so sensitive, and especially in this way. That's one of the. I think if I ever classify myself, I was a liberal 20 years ago, but then it got totalitarian the more power they got. They sort of acted just like the assholes they were rebelling against.
And I believe that's an excellent segue into your latest offering, Potatoes on the Moon. So, what is this book about, and where did the idea stem from?
The idea, I think the germ of it was a few months ago. A thought catalog. We had this group chat thing, and we were talking about beautiful states or something. I brought up Idaho, and one of the other writers' responses, "What the hell's there to see in Idaho?" Just because and it occurred to me, people never think of Idaho. It's like, along with Wyoming, I guess, 2 of the bastard stepchildren. People never think about it, or the impressions they have are either non-existent or really, really negative. And I guess part of the reason I wanted to write this book about Idaho was I'd been through there 20 years ago, and it was spectacular. I've been to all 50 states. I'd rate Idaho as one of the 5 most beautiful. And I think it's also interesting culturally because it's a real outpost of extreme libertarianism, scattered militias, rumored hate groups, especially up in the northern panhandle. So I just wanted to go there and rub elbows and see what I came back with. Boise, and that's how they say it. They don't say Boise, it's Boise, is unbelievably dull, and you can't make it exciting. Even, if a terrorist attack were to, the bomb might yawn before going off if it was landing in Boise. But otherwise, the rest of the state is spectacular, and people are interesting. And I think what appeals to me too, there's a couple more things. So there's the theme of urban supremacy, because the media is entirely urban, financial centers are urban, and there is chauvinism toward rural people and rural culture. And the country is getting much and much less rural. I don't know, it was 100 years ago, it was 70% rural, and now it's 15 population-wise. But what makes Idaho so weird is it just never changed. And now all of a sudden it used to be the mainstream, but by not changing, it's suddenly exotic. I'd much rather hang out in the wilderness there, and you have deeper political conversation just running into somebody walking along some trail than you would in any coffee shop in any Starbucks in any city across the country.
Yeah, and as someone who's lived in all 4 corners of the United States, you have a lot of vast experiences with different demographics. So, what is it you think makes the people of Idaho so distinct culturally?
I think it was, as far as the continental U.S., it was the last state to be explored, because it's rugged terrain. I mean, you're up there in the Rockies, and I think the people who just stuck it out there, because no huge cities ever emerged, so I guess they were more of a pioneering, individualistic, get the hell away from everyone else type of crowd, and I can relate. I say in the book was Jim Bridger, an American pioneer. It was said of him that he liked places more than he liked people, and I'm the same way, so I can identify with that. And especially, we went from Boise all the way up to Sandpoint, which is about 500 miles due north, and then wheedled our way down through some of the most mind-bendingly beautiful wilderness I'd ever seen. And I almost just didn't want to leave. I was depressed almost the minute I got there because I knew I'd have to. Mm-hmm. And toward the end of the book, we get back to Boise and go to a karaoke bar and watch some biker get knocked out by a bouncer. And it's like, I wish I was back. Yeah, because the night before I'd been soaking in natural hot springs under a full moon way out in the wilderness, and an area that's only accessible by snowmobile in the winter.
And did you have any memorable encounters with some of the residents of Idaho during your stay?
I think the most was we were staying in Syringa, which is right on the Clearwater River near the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness area. We just took this beautiful walk, and we're coming back, and this guy with a sort of manic gleam in our eye came walking the other way. So you're the couple from Tennessee, right? And I'm like, no, that's a rent-a-car. It says Tennessee. But he got into this long discussion about how he's from New England, but he has health problems, which he didn't specify, but he moved out here because it's the most pristine area in the country. And, I mean, just unspooled about how he thinks the UN plans to cram everyone into cities as part of the depopulation program, that he could take anyone from the city, any troubled urban youth, bring them out there within a half hour just from the air and the aromatherapy, they'd be mentally healthier. And I agreed with him. But it's those sort of people. I mean, if I had seen this guy, walking on the street in the Bronx, we just would make eye contact and go our own ways. It's only out in the country you walk past somebody that's courtesy to say hi, talk.
And what would you say is the most interesting thing you learned about Idaho during your visit?
Nothing that shattered any preconceived notions. Because I'd already been familiar with like the Randy Weaver story and that Aryan nations had a compound in the Panhandle, and I finally met Holocaust revisionist expert on indentured servitude and Masonic conspiracy theory expert Michael Hoffman. I'd known him for 20 years, and we met him for lunch in Coeur d'Alene, and that was one of the points I made too. We were up in hate country, the most hateful, hate-filled nest of extremists and lunatics, and he was absolutely polite and erudite. And it's, you have to overcome a certain sense of bigotry to even want to talk to somebody like that. I consider myself one of the least bigoted, truly least judgmental. I want to see if someone can entertain me for 5 minutes. I don't care where they're from or what they believe. It's more about their personality.
And did you see the rural and urban divide manifesting itself even in Idaho?
Well, yeah, you have. I mean, Boise they have a free weekly there, which is as predictable as every other fucking free weekly you get throughout the country. They have, I noticed that they have it's an Anne Frank museum in Boise and a Black History museum somewhere in Boise too. And I mean, like I say in the book, it's like it must be the size of a shoebox because there's no black people in Idaho. Hardly, I mean, maybe 1%, maybe. What I find ironic about this fact, Anne Frank never was in Idaho. In this supposedly this center, ground zero of white supremacy, and there's no museums or monuments to whiteness, but they're doing like everywhere else, these guilt rituals through Holocaust museums and slavery museums. So it was even there that this sort of cultural Marxist, pro-globalist ethos was taking over, which is sad. I mean, the people. What was curious too is you have all these monuments and museums about the Indian or Native American, indigenous, the Nez Perce tribe, and a couple others. There's all monuments to that, and there's all monuments to new diversity. No monuments to the ordinary Christian, Mormon, white mountaineers that have lived there for, I was going to say millennia and then centuries, and it's not even that. It's maybe like 150 years. It really was one of the last states to be explored and settled.
And what would you say is the big takeaway about urban supremacy and potatoes on the moon?
I don't think it's going to last. I think that the weird, manic, physically ill prophet that we saw on that little trail back to our cabin, I think he was right. I don't think there's a word that progressives use a lot of times, sustainability. I don't think this current system is sustainable. I think there is going to be some sort of collapse. I hope I'm paranoid and completely wrong, but I do think if that happens, probably it's the people out there that will survive, not the urban dwellers. It's going to be Armageddon in the cities. And I grew up in the Philadelphia area, and I fetishized huge cities for much of my life. I moved to New York, was so excited because it's bigger and filthier than Philadelphia was, and lived out in LA for 7 years. But the older I get too, I just realize I'm fundamentally misanthropic, don't like crowds, so I'd rather be somewhere where there's just hummingbirds buzzing around and throngs of people
And,
stack each other.
of course. And what would you say is perhaps the biggest misconception the general public has about Idaho and its citizens?
I think the problem is they don't have any perception about it at all, except, oh, potatoes, they grow potatoes, and that's the least interesting thing about the state. And I think they need better PR because it is like Norway or Switzerland once you get north of Boise. Just I am at least. I was just silent in reverence of the landscape, which is unreal. I said there are some places so beautiful that just being there feels like falling in love, and I felt that way throughout this trip. You're just humbled. There's no urban sculpture that I've ever seen that can strike me the way some of these rural landscapes do.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to conclude, I want to let you have the final word. Anything else you want to say about potatoes on the moon? Its impact, any specific messages you're trying to get across?
I think one of the things I do is kind of taunt people who are uh, their entire platform is being against bigotry and prejudice and othering people. That sometimes the ones that are biggest loudmouths of that are the ones most guilty of it. They'd probably be terrified to go somewhere like that, figuring they'd be lynched or. I guess the biggest thing is for maybe city people to pipe the fuck down and realize that these dumb inbred redneck extremist hillbillies are every bit as human as they are and probably tougher.
Well, it's a pleasure hearing from you as always, Mr. Goad. Where can our readers go to pick up your latest offering?
I guess just Amazon.com. I'm trying to get my travel partner, Bubbles, throughout this book. She's still trying to figure out how to sign up for an Amazon account to then get Kindle. You basically have to have an Amazon account or some other ebook reader to get it. You can get it through iTunes or Amazon.
Okay, and
Corporate titans, Apple and Amazon.
our overlords, of course. All right, yeah, any additional websites, upcoming projects you'd like to promote?
I think one day I'd like to, because I'm getting near the end of the line with just writing about politics, because it dawned on me only very recently that most people really don't want to discuss topics. They've got a team and an ideology, and no amount of facts or logic or persuasion will budge them. And it's a fruitless procedure. So I'm thinking, just as Conway Twitty, who was a rock and roll star in the 50s, around the mid-60s, he said, I think I've lived long enough, I can sing country music, meaning that he went through enough trauma and heartbreak that he was able to represent in that genre. And I think I've met enough truly weird fucking people and experienced enough quirks and patterns in human behavior. I'd like to write fiction one day. I think some of it could be really good. Because I've got a friend, Nick, who, he's seen it all, but I tell him things that happen to me with girls and stalkers, and he says, Jimbo, I believe everything you're telling me. I've just never heard stories like this. It's all true, but it's all unbelievable at the same time. So I'd like to be able to take that and maybe make some fictional tableaus out of it.